All right. Welcome everyone who is on the call and everyone who is going to be watching this afterwards. It is a slightly different format this time. We are working more of a talk because we are talking about the we're talking about ChoKuRei as a symbol and talking about different ways to use it, and it's something that's worth kind of diving into a little bit for the history and all the different things. The symbols in Reiki get this weird little, they've got an importance that perhaps is over the top, and actually they're really, really useful. But there's this idea that they have to be like they're being revered in and of themselves, and actually it's not about them. You don't get attuned to a symbol. That's one of the things that gets said a lot in Reiki, that you'll get attuned to a certain symbol once you reach a certain level. That's not actually the case at all. You get attuned to Reiki, and the symbol is a way for you to work within very specific parts of the frequency to narrow your focus on different bits of the frequency of Reiki. So anybody who's attuned to Reiki technically could use a symbol. But the first three symbols, ChoKuRei, Seiheki, and Honshize Shonen, are all part of the Okuden levels of teaching, and Okuden means hidden. So the hidden teachings. So it's things that aren't revealed until you're ready to receive those teachings. So although they're out there in the world, they're on the internet, anyone can look them up, they're in a lot of books, and anyone who's attuned to Reiki could use them, you know, because they do work. The power in it comes from the understanding and being given them at the point when you're actually, you know, ready to start carefully using the energy in a deliberate way, in a streamlined and focused way. So we're doing a few of these. We're going to cover all of the symbols, but today we are using ChoKuRei, which is the first of the symbols, and it is the one that is drawn with one straight line across, one straight line down, and then we get the three spirals coming in. So we start from the top, come down to the bottom, and then we spiral around, and we draw it in a way that the spirals are anti-clockwise, not clockwise. And that's important. I know there are some Reiki schools of thought where you also can use them the other way around, but by the time you're doing that, they've ascribed some meaning or other to them. But by the time you're doing that, you're then removing them even further away from their origins. So I think really those kind of uses of ChoKuRei can probably just be put in the bin, if I'm really honest. But I asked you guys for some non-standard ways of doing it, because although when things are done without any sort of meaning or in a way that demonstrates a lack of respect for the origins or a lack of understanding, I do think that those things should be put in the bin. But I do love weird stuff that we do in an inspired way that seems to have worked, particularly if we're honest about the fact that they're being done in that weird inspired way. These were my favorite ones that I got in response in the booking forms. Someone said they use this symbol more than in healings or in meditation. They use it more for situations and events, and specifically it's to make those things go more smoothly, and they have more confidence when they go to events that they've used the ChoKuRei for that. Another one said that they've used it to revive a mobile phone in the winter. I know loads of people that have charged their phone with a ChoKuRei symbol, and it is the ChoKuRei one for some reason. Another person who uses them as ninja throwing stars. That is not traditional, but that just appeals to my personality, which probably says more about me than it does about anybody else. Definitely more than it says about ChoKuRei, but I love that. And that person is one of my students, and I know that she also has in the Seiheki ones as like two like ninja swords. So I guess she's some kind of Reiki warrior. I really like that. Someone else uses it to ground and support the body when the body is under a high emotional stress. So basically what she was saying is normally you would probably want to use Seiheki for, or like the perceived wisdom is that you're working with emotional stress, so you would use the emotional and mental healing symbol, but she has used it primarily in grounding the body so that it can be supported for that emotional work, and that actually makes a lot of sense when you look at where it comes from as well. Someone has uses it, and I have also done this, painted it onto all of the walls of the house before the first coat of paint comes up. I can see nodding, so I know that this is something like I have also done this. Every house that I have ever had to do any of the painting myself, there are ChoKuReis underneath there, really proper big ones. And what's really nice about that is if you do use it, because that's another non-standard use of it, is to draw massive ChoKuReis, like as big as your body, and kind of project them out into the space so that you've got one on that side, and then you turn and do another and go around and do the whole, all the quarters effectively in ChoKuReis, and then also do underneath and above, and maybe one in the center. That's something that I've seen done a lot, and it really works to hold and protect space. And if you also know that you've kind of painted it in under there, so it's permanently there, it just gives it a bit more oomph. And the other one, people's cars. I know multiple people who have used the ChoKuRei symbol to put it on people's cars to make them work. So those are things that Azui Sensei would obviously not have been thinking about and wouldn't have been doing, but they definitely work. The way that it's taught in Western Reiki quite often is that the ChoKuRei is the power symbol, and a lot of us refer to it as being the power symbol. It is not technically what it was intended to be used for. It's not a good translation of how it was used in Japanese Reiki. But what that comes from is in Western Reiki, it gets used on top of the other symbols to make the other symbols work. That is not required, and most people who, teachers who have like gone on to do research or just have stayed in the business for a long time, tried different, most people start to leave that idea behind. I've seen people do it and it doesn't seem to get in the way of the Reiki, but it definitely doesn't. I mean, look, it wasn't supposed to be used like that. They're very, very specific tracks of energy. The ChoKuRei symbol is earth energy. That's always what it was intended to be, and that is what it means, and it's what it represents. And the Seiheki symbol was intended to be a gateway into heavenly energy, and it was always intended to be that, and that is what it means. So when you mix them together, you have two opposing forces coming together, and it doesn't really work in that way. Now, if you are intending to bring both of them through deliberately, that's awesome. But if you are doing the Seiheki symbol and then you draw the ChoKuRei on top of it, I feel like that sort of stuff's working like in spite of itself. It's only happening because of intention. It doesn't actually assist the process to use ChoKuRei in that way. It was never intended to be used as a power symbol. It was intended to be used as focus and as earth energy, earth key. So Azui would never have obviously given them out. First of all, no weekend workshops from Azui. When it was originally being taught, people would have been given they would have been given their attunements and worked through long-term, more like training in martial arts or meditation or whatever, where you go back every week. The symbols would not have been revealed all in one go like we do today. We give them out in, I mean, I do the same. I give them out at Reiki 2, all on the same course. That's not how it would have been done before. You would have sat with the energy of the ChoKuRei symbol, or the energy that the symbol opens it up to. And then once you'd become grounded in that, then you would have moved on to Seiheki. And then once you've become like grounded and like you understood that and started to connect with the inner work of that, then you'd move on to Honshize Shonen, because technically ChoKuRei is earth energy, Seiheki is heavenly energy. Once you have combined those and created like a sense of unity between those two things in your own body and in your own experience, then you can move on to Honshize Shonen, which isn't a symbol, it's kanji, but it's a way into the energy of oneness. And you cannot go to oneness until you've started with earth, brought down heaven, brought them together, and then there is oneness. So that was always the intended order for the symbols to be used. The symbols weren't added until quite late in the process. Uzui added them, I think, in 1923, and he died, I think, in 1926 or thereabouts. So it's a very late addition to the symbol. They do come from him, but they weren't always part of it. Before that, it would have been the concepts, the ideas to meditate on, the feeling of the energy, and the mantras, which are sort of a different way in to the same thing. You can use them both together. So all of the symbols that Uzui used have their origins in older systems that would have been available to him to experience and see through older Japanese spiritual traditions. So primarily Shintoism, and there is an aspect of the ChoKuRei symbol. The line seems to have been added based on the direction, based on this idea of some of the translations that the names have given to it, and we'll get to that in a sec. But the actual symbol would have been used in all, it's basically on the walls of Shinto temples all over the place. So is the master symbol, by the way, and the Honshize Shonen as a concept isn't really a symbol. It's, well, it's a word, it's a phrase, it's just Japanese kanji. But this is from the Futomani divination chart, and you can see in here that the symbols representing heaven and earth are these two spirals, and of course they show up everywhere, but importantly Uzui would have seen them specifically being counterclockwise 3 spirals, the same way that it's used, because that's what ChoKuRei looks like. So the line was added, but the symbols of the spiral was used in the same way that it was used in these old Japanese ways of looking. Now, there is some argument that these symbols from these books, the Book of Heaven and the Book of Earth, come from 660 BC. But scholars are arguing about that, and I am no scholar on this kind of issue. The point is they're super old, and you can see symbols like this on the temple walls in Shintoism. Shintoism being, of course, the native religion, the indigenous animist spiritual tradition of Japan. So pre-Buddhist, we can see those things on the temples. You can also see in China references towards this anti-clockwise spiraling, and of course those spiritual traditions would have been similar, you know, just growing up in similar, like their languages are similar also, you know, these things were growing out of the same regions of the world. They also reference the idea of energy, the energy of the earth that is considered to spiral anti-clockwise, and the energy of the Great Bear. So they're kind of connecting in with constellations. We seem to be moving anti-clockwise. So there's all kinds of different traditions from that part of the world that reference it. And the reason I kind of labour that point is, if you're going to use the symbol, you should draw it properly, which means that's the way around that it goes. That I have seen it done the other way multiple times, and they say, oh, well, it's to change the energy of it. But it's not intended to move energy in a particular way. That's not why we draw it in a anti-clockwise way. It's intended to represent the energy of the earth, and it's all about these ancient symbols that are the ways that sort of ancient scholars were and spiritual seekers were experiencing the movement of earth energy, not the movement of energy for healing or the movement of energy for, you know, in bodies or on the earth, but the earth's energy itself. So all things being equal, we use the correct symbol, which is one line across, one line down, and those three movements across in an anti-clockwise direction. Now, lots of people use them to draw over the body. You can draw it with your finger, or lots of people draw it with their hands this way, which I find a bit weird. I like a big one this way, but when we're working on the body, we don't necessarily have to draw them over the body. I like them because it's just about focus. It's just about me. If I draw it, then I am paying attention exactly to what kind of energy I want to channel. I'm a witch, so I like symbolism. Having that movement kind of helps me. There is something very powerful about actually pressing into, you should really only do this on certain parts of the body, but pressing into the body and sort of almost, so you're pressing in and you're not drawing it this way, but to press in and then draw it. So you're just kind of, you know, you're sort of pressing the energy into the body. There are whole Japanese ways of working with hand positions and symbols. That means that where you would press one in at the base of the neck and another in at the base of the spine. And so you would press in and move your fingers so that you are drawing a ChoKuRei, but you're sort of almost manipulating the skin. And then with your breath, visualizing it go into the spine, then moving down to the base of the spine and pressing in here in the same way. And we do that in the Japanese, what do they call it? The blood exchange, this idea of the detoxification of the body, which is a whole, which would be a whole nother talk on itself, but it's a series of hand positions and movements on the back intended to completely purify the body. So you can sort of press it into the body and do it in that way. But some people prefer to draw them above, visualize them above their own head and have the flow of energy that's coming down go through the ChoKuRei symbol and come into the crown, down obviously into the tanden where we're connecting in, and then sending the energy out of the hands in quite a pure way without having to think about symbols or deliberately sending earth energy. Instead, just allowing it to flow through, knowing that the intention part of it has been taken care of already up here. So it would be sort of something that you step into before you start channeling the energy. So you would take a moment to visualize that ChoKuRei symbol above your crown, have the energy come down through the crown into the tanden, and then just put your hands on or above the client and be working that way. I also like to visualize them on the tops of my hands so that I can see them when I'm working. So that's not a particularly traditional way to do it, but I quite like to have it so that I can see them, as it were. And I find that quite useful. You don't actually have to draw them at all. And all the kind of old school Japanese practitioners of Reiki would say that they do work, and they are deliberately chosen gateways into a particular type of energy, but that they were intended for you to learn how to open that door, that gateway into the energy. And once you've learned that and you have fully grounded that energy in your body, you wouldn't then keep drawing it if you didn't need to. Like I say, I like symbols, so I do draw them sometimes I don't, but I do draw them sometimes, and it becomes quite a sort of powerful little ritual thing that just sets it off for me. But it's not actually necessary, and I think the original intention was probably that you have that so that you can just quickly get into it. But once you've internalized it, you don't need it anymore. It's like all of our other kind of tools, really. A lot of people draw them on things if we're charging stuff that we're then going to use for healing. That's another non-standard one that I meant to mention. I have them drawn as like magical sigils almost, and I put like crystals or whatever on top of it. Very not Japanese. I don't think Azui was working with crystals ever. But I also know a lot of people who put them on the bottom. I used to do this actually on the bottom of my water bottle. Just have one drawn on the bottom, so there's like constantly that energy like there charging the water. I have also been known to use it on alcoholic beverages because of my belief, which I still hold, that it will stop you getting a hangover. And I once was sat there in the pub, just like drawing my little thing, and someone was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just raking my pint so that I don't get a hangover." And it was just literally everyone's pint just got pushed in front of me, and I just sat there like raking other people's pints. And I was like, there you go, you will all be well tomorrow. But I do think, and some people have done experiments with it. I remember when I was training, talking to some people who were doing experiments to basically buy like quite a crappy bottle of wine and then put the ChoKuRei symbol underneath it, and it made it taste a bit more palatable. I don't know about that, but I have heard people say that they believe that it works. So there's another non-standard way of doing it. But it's such a, we don't really tend to do that with the other symbols. It's the ChoKuRei that tends to be used in that way in Western Reiki. And just those of us that like a little bit of magical symbolism, even if we're practicing a more Japanese version of Reiki. But what it really does come from is Shintoism. And in Shintoism, it doesn't even mean focus. What it means is straight or direct. And it refers to earth energy, and that is kind of known and accepted in terms of the symbol, but the word means direct. The root word for ChoKuRei means direct, or it means straight. And it's used in line with things that are being used for purification. There's like these rituals with 4 different types of purification, and ChoKuRei is one of the purifications. But what they mean by straight isn't just direct. What they mean by straight is like honest. So like on EastEnders, if you were saying someone was going straight, like these people are no longer doing bad things. And so it's direct connection with spirit. And I think, and I feel like I read it, but I couldn't find it in any of my books, so I don't know where I got it from. So it might just be my opinion, but I think that that line from creator down is the direct connection. But I cannot find where I got that from. I did hunt through my books. That's why I had my books out earlier. I was looking for it. I don't know where I got that from, but it feels to me like it's direct, as in communion, as in direct connection with the divine here on earth. But what they mean by straight is honest. And if you remember the Reiki precepts, we talk about being honest in your work, or be true to your way and your being is another one of the usual translations. The way that I was taught, it was be honest in your work, not be honest, but be honest in your work. And so If ChoKuRei means be honest in your work, then that means that we are being asked to be true to ourselves, right? We're being asked to work in direct alignment. We are being asked to be in right livelihood. That's a spiritual phrase that gets used a lot. We're also asked to be honest when we are speaking, to say who we are. We're being asked to do the right thing, to be truthful, but like in a real sense, not in some like, you know, abstract sense. This is grounding work, remember. This is earth energy that we're tapping into. And so what we are really talking about, it's not grounding in the body, it's grounding source, grounding connection with creator into our human body. It's grounding our connection with spirit into the way that we act, into the way that we live in the world. And that is what ChoKuRei actually is intended to do. It's actually what we're intended to mean. So we are working with earth key, not so much in the sense that, oh, I'm going to work on a physical ailment on the body, or I'm going to work because somebody has got a cut or pain or a broken bone. So ChoKuRei is the earth key. It is heavier, it does feel heavier, and it does work really well for physical healing. But one of the problems with that idea that that's how we use the healing, one of the problems with that is that oftentimes the pain will be coming from something mental that is stored in the body, or something emotional that is playing out in the body. So it doesn't quite translate that physical like pain or physical wounding needs physical earth energy to heal it. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But while it does work a lot of the time, it wasn't intended to do physical healing. It wasn't really intended to be given to anybody else at all. We all do it in our Reiki practice, or at least have done it. I still do it myself because it works, and if it works, why not? But its intention was an inner healing and an inner realignment for us to connect with earth energy, to become effectively our true self, right? So in the Reiki source book, which I always recommend that you guys have, because there's so much cool research in here. This is by Bronwyn and Francine, and I refer to this a lot when I'm being a Reiki nerd. They quoted something from the Essence of Shinto, which says Shoku means right action or behavior, as well as the social aspect of being right. That is not committing any sin, any crime, or any offense, and behaving with honesty, openness, and frankness towards others. That's an entirely different understanding of what earth energy and earth healing is than what we've been told it is. Even those of us that have trained in Japanese Reiki, when we're fundamentally looking at, okay, we're connecting with earth energy instead of heavenly energy, it's not a power symbol. For us to come into it this way, it's like, oh, okay, that's actually about my behavior. It's about my living in alignment with my work, with my beliefs, and with me showing who I truly am. And Franz Stein did also say in the inner heart of Reiki as the true self, from a traditional Japanese perspective, direct or correct spirit, which is another translation, so it's straight or direct or correct spirit, describes our true self. In other words, it describes a way of being when we are able to access our spirit, our true self, directly. Although in modern Reiki practice, ChoKuRei might be seen as something we give to a personal place, traditionally it was not so. It was an inner spiritual practice. Within Shinto, being straight or direct is a very important element as it points towards honesty. Be honest, be true to your way and your being. All the tools within the system of Reiki are signposts pointing us in the direction of being straight or direct so that we can discover our true self. So that is the point of accessing Earth Key. That is the point of using the ChoKuRei symbol. That's the point of the inner work. It is so that we can be present as our true selves. It's so that we can embody this spiritual practice before we are then able to access the heavenly key that we would use, Seihei key, or in Japan it's actually called Kiriku. We would access that to then bring in the heavenly energy, and then after that, Honshu Shonen for oneness. And then beyond that, the fourth Reiki symbol is the Daikomyo, which is the actual connecting with, you know, the great divine light. And that's, so there's an order of those things that proceeds in a way that makes sense when we think about it in this way. We have to show up as ourselves, our direct connection to source, our direct and true expression of who we are, before we can start to have really any hope of connecting with heavenly energy or any of those things, any of those big empowerment energies and those distance healing energies, which are all grounded in this idea, the Shinto and Buddhist ideals of oneness. So the next time you are using ChoKuRei on a client, which all of us do, it's worth remembering that actually we're aligning ourselves and therefore hopefully aligning our clients who are in our presence with their true self. And even when we think about the weird usages that people gave me, so to go back to that from the beginning, we got sending ChoKuRei to situations and events so that they'll go smoothly, and at each of those ones I have more confidence and I'm better able to cope with them. Well, that tracks then, doesn't it? Because then the ChoKuRei is being used for that person to show up as their true self instead of as the nervous person who's worrying what other people will think about them. Don't really know what to say about throwing them as ninja throwing stars. Maybe that's like truth bombs that we're throwing out into the world. Maybe we can use some of that. Grounding and supporting the body under high emotional stress. So that is bringing your true self forward so that we don't fall into these sort of external ideas and stresses. That makes sense as well. Using them to, I was thinking about this, using them to recharge and fix mobile phones, technical problems, fixing people's cars. I was thinking the only way that kind of makes sense to me for in this idea of ChoKuRei is, first of all, remembering how powerful we are in our own true selves. That works for me. But also sometimes it doesn't work, right? And sometimes we are able to pull our focus and our energy and say, I am meant to be talking to this person or able to get out of this situation or to get to where I'm going. And then that feels good for ChoKuRei to be the thing that we are calling on to kind of make that happen and bring things back into alignment. In shamanism, we think about those, you know, where people have a run of bad luck and then they struggle to, that we think about that as a power loss. So if you were trying to get somewhere and then your car didn't work, or like there was a problem on the journey there, or there was a problem with your phone so you couldn't communicate, that would be considered to be symptoms of power loss for that thing. So if that is what it is, then the ChoKuRei would work to realign, because it would call in your true self again, so that everything to get you back on track. But if it was happening because you weren't kind of supposed to be there, which I do think can happen sometimes, then it wouldn't work. This isn't a tool to be used as an act of force. So yeah, just it was interesting to me, some of the uses that people have for it and how they actually are about us realigning and connecting with our true self instead. So really, it's about grounding spirituality in the world, and that's why we are using Earth Key. It does work on our walls and in our space, which is us living in our space as our true selves, holding our environment in line with our will as our true self. So that also works for ChoKuRei. It does work when we are doing hands-on treatment on other people. It does work on your pint in the pub to make sure that you don't get a headache the next day. So there's all kinds of things that it does work for, but what it was actually intended for is for us to be in communion with spirit in a very real and grounded way, grounded right down in the bottom tanden, the bottom hara, just behind and beneath the belly button, so that we can be present as spiritual power in the world. That's actually what the focus symbol, the Earth Key Gateway, was designed to be for. So yes, that is my musings on this heavy grounding energy. What I've got for us to do as a meditation, sometimes we have like quite a lot of discussion on these, but actually, obviously we're going to take questions now if anyone has questions. What I wanted us to do was a proper just a proper practical meditation. But what we did last time was very led, very guided. If you weren't here last time and you want the link to that, Cherry, you were here, weren't you, when we did our little hara defining thing? That's really good for that's really good for the hara, but I think you other guys were not here for that one. So if anyone wants that, or if anyone has signed up to watch this and is watching it after who wants that, give me a shout and I will send you a link to the hara defining. That was kind of guided and spoken through, and I wanted to do something different today. What I wanted us to do was simply to draw the symbol over ourselves and sit with the energy of it. So what I've got to play for you is effectively a sound bath that I've made that uses one of the yes please to the other recording. Yes, Mary, I will include it in when I send out this recording to all of you guys as well. The hara defining exercise is called the breath of truth. And it was really good fun, and it turned my face really bright pink by the end of the recording as well, which was quite funny. So it builds a lot of internal heat. We're gonna I'm gonna play a recording for you guys that I have made. I actually made it as part of the Reiki sound healing course. So what it actually uses is the Kata Dharma, and the Kata Dharma that corresponds, the Earth Key focus Kata Dharma that corresponds to this energy is basically ChoKuRei. And Kata Dharma is like a whole art in and of itself. I will not go into it in this, but lots of people use the mantra and the symbol together. It is not required. I am going to ask you guys to focus on the symbol, because that is what we have been talking about today. And of course, you're all Reiki 2 and above, so you know it. And I will play this sound bath, which is intended to draw Earth Key into your body. So what we're doing is combining our two intentions. So your intention by drawing the symbol, visualizing the symbol, and taking that energy into your body, and my intention to surround you with sound that is literally pulling that Earth Key into your body. It should work on normal speakers. If you're on headphones, it might work a little better. So I'll put that on at the end so that we can sit in it. I think it's 12 minutes, so it's a proper drink. It's a proper healing you're gonna get, to kind of drink it in, which is exactly what we need. Yes, lots of good earth energy. I will say, before I take questions, that Reiki sound healing weekend, which is drumming and chanting for the different energies and community healings, is happening again in Glastonbury. It's happening I wrote it down, it's happening in November, the beginning of November. I think it's the 5th and 6th of November. So that's for Reiki 2 and above, if that stuff works for you. I lied, it's the 9th and 10th of November. The Reiki block removal is happening on Saturday, the 13th of July, if you guys are interested in this more shamanic approach to Reiki. And on Saturday, the 14th of September, all in Glastonbury, that will be the Reiki cord cutting. And there's Reiki Mastership happening as well on the 5th and 6th of October, if anyone wants to go deeper with symbols and how we work with the energies. So those things are happening in Glastonbury if the sound healing and other geeky Reiki ways of mine are appealing. But before we go into the actual healing meditation for tonight, I will take questions if anyone has any questions about the ChoKuRei, about drawing it or how to use it. I guess unmute yourselves or raise your hands or whatever we're supposed to do on Zoom these days.
I don't have any questions, Kate, but I have a comment, which is without the line.
Yep.
My carpet is the ChoKuRei. How many rings in this spiral? How mad that I bought it for my therapy room.
You're just in it with your own energy. And it shows up in all kinds of places, right? Almost like in the labyrinth in some ways as well, you know. It's obviously like cross-cultural as a symbol, but specifically for it to be those three, and for it to be counterclockwise. I love if you have that on your rug.
Incredible. And then ChoKuRei, who attuned me to Reiki 1, she really spoke a lot about the hangover, and it's great for hangover. And I really dismissed it when she said it. I thought, oh, she's just making a joke, and now you're bringing it back. So yeah.
I mean, obviously, once we start doing things like Reiki or whatever, you do drink less anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's not something, otherwise it interferes with the work, right? So I don't, do it so often as I did before and all those kinds of things. But yeah, and I would say don't wait for the hangover. No. Reiki, your wine, my friends. Get out in front of it.
That's funny. That does bring a question. I don't know if it's related to Reiki, but I can't drink alcohol. I get drunk on the smallest amount of alcohol, and I can get drunk if my children get drunk.
Oh, in like a synesthete kind of way, and like an empath kind of way.
We'll say you've drank alcohol because I feel drunk.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's since my Reiki, if that's when I started to have that effect with alcohol. I didn't link it at the time, but now I'm wondering.
That is interesting and weird.
Yes.
I like both those things.
Feels to you.
It does. It's sad though that like everyone, I remember this is a similar kind of thing. My shamanic teacher, his partner is a Reiki person. And he was like, oh, this incredible like work that she was doing loads of work with people at the end of life, hospice care and stuff like that, all this kind of like amazing, worthy use of Reiki. And he was like, the minute I became a believer was when my phone died and she recharged it so I could make, he was just like, and he was like, and I know that is wrong, that I shouldn't, that I know that's less valuable. And so it's so funny. It's like, oh yes, we're gonna like align with our true selves, and you're like, yeah, but let's go back to the hangover. That's exactly how we are as humans. All these little things are important. I'm gonna play the meditation track in case unless you other guys have any questions about the meditation. No unmuting occurring. Lovely. All right then. I will say, to preempt any questions that anyone who's watching this later might have, I like to draw the ChoKuRei symbol above my head and connect in with Reiki and have it flow in that way. But there are others who I know who like to draw it as like a large symbol that's in front of them and have the energy come in that way. However is easiest for you guys to hold the visualization of the symbol itself, because it's a focused gateway. So once it's drawn and the energy is flowing, if the image kind of falls away a little bit, that's okay. But if it's easier for you to have it above you where you're drawing the energy down from, then put it there. If it's easier for you to have it in front of you and pull the energy in this way, or if you like to draw it over, it's a very Western Reiki thing to draw them over your chakras. So that is also cool. However you want to connect in with the symbol is fine, but what I am asking you to do, however you're visualizing the symbol and however you're drawing the energy through into your body, I will say remember your connection to the Reiki source. Remember to connect into the tanden, which is just a couple of finger breaths beneath your belly button, about a third of the way into the body. That is our main connecting point, and this is another good horror defining exercise to connect with ChoKuRei. So intend that that's kind of the seat, as it were, like the wellspring of that connection. That's where it's connecting into, and intend that you're receiving that ChoKuRei energy as earth key, as focus, as straight, direct, correct spirit, as a way to kind of be connecting with your true self in connection with source. So it doesn't really matter how you draw the symbol or how you visualize it, so long as it's drawn with that intention that's what we're doing. And I will be playing for you a track that I created for the sound healing Reiki students to connect with that exact energy. So we are combining your intention and your symbol drawing with my sound work that you will be able to hear. And we are just going to sit in that energy. If at any point your attention wanders, you can redraw it. If it helps you to, I'm going to be keeping, you guys are on mute. I'm going to be keeping you guys on mute. So if you want to even say the symbol name out loud or anything like that, then like to bring yourself back into connection with it, please do. Just make sure that you're comfortable. The sound bath track is how many minutes? It is 12 minutes and 21 seconds. That feels mystical now that I say it. And so it's just literally to bring in that energy. So we're not doing any other directing other than to just sit with the energy for us to feel earth key, to feel the energy opened by ChoKuRei. Does that feel good? Excellent, excellent. Make yourselves comfortable, my friends. I am going to put that on, and I'll talk you through just basically around drawing the symbol, and then we are just going to sit in that energy, and we are going to connect with our true selves and with Earth Key. So closing your eyes, making yourself comfortable. Taking a moment to connect with the Reiki source. Feel yourself connected with the flow of Reiki energy. Feel that connection in your tanden, your hara. your mind's eye or with your physical hands, draw the ChoKuRei symbol. Perhaps above you, perhaps in front of you, perhaps in your body. Intend that through the gateway of this symbol, a straight line across, a straight line down, and then those 3 anti-clockwise spiraled lines. A simple spiral. Intend that this connects you with earth energy. Allow that energy to fill your hara, to fill your body. Remember, you are not just connecting with Source. You are not just connecting with the natural energy of the earth. You are connecting with your true self, your ability to present in the world in an honest and direct way, to live in honesty and alignment. Just allowing now the symbol or symbols that you have drawn to be taken into and absorbed into your body, so that you can keep this healing energy, so that you can keep the memory of this healing, of that energetic feeling in your body. Allow that flow of Reiki energy from source to slow and then stop, so we're no longer actively channeling Reiki energy. Focus your attention on your Tanden and set your intention there, that you are grounded and physically present in your body, no longer actively channeling Reiki, no longer healing or meditating, but bringing that energy into your regular presence, your physical body, your daily life, knowing that this healing has been for your highest good and the expression of your true self. And bringing yourself back to normal awareness when you're ready. Every now and then had to peer open to make sure you guys were all right, but I was just in it, to be honest. just doing it myself. I can see, Cherry, you're the only brave one with your camera on today. So I saw you go like this, and then it did that thing on Zoom where it gives you the emoji for it. But I hope that you other guys are back in your body as well and feeling good. If there's any sharing or comments or questions that anyone wants to have, we have a couple minutes before we'll be signing off. So please do let me know if you want any feedback or have any questions or anything that came up or just want to share.
I just want to share, I was just gone. That was really intense. Really, really intense. And I had loads of visions there. Loads of things. I couldn't even track them, but a couple really stayed heavily with me. Yeah, really, really profound. And I needed you to say, like, ground the symbols in your body. It was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and traditionally when I've taught people to connect with the symbols, obviously because it's the skills lodge and I get to play around with stuff, and because of all these weird planetary alignments happening today, I feel like it's a power time. I wanted to bring in the Kota Dharma mantra as well, so it does make it a bit more spacey. But what we usually do is we release the symbols and let them dissolve. But it felt really important after everything that was said to kind of have um, yeah, to take it in, for it to be solidified, not disintegrated afterwards. You know, for this kind of approach when we're coming into ChoKuRei from the idea of true self and earth key, like there's something amazing about that, to be like, no, I'm keeping that. We'll take it in, ground in, and stay in the body, you know. It feels good. Feels good. Feels good. Felt good for me as well. Mary is saying that felt powerful and blissful. I had lots of animal visions, which is unlike me during Reiki. So it's fascinating. So more visions coming in. That's interesting that there's two of you that had that. That is very interesting to me. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, that's really I don't know if it's the time or if it's just this idea of coming into the symbol meaning more than what we were told, or if it's the sound. I don't know, but yeah, it felt really important that we sat and really, like, yeah, blissed out on the symbol itself, or rather the door that it opens. The symbol is not the power, the symbol is the way into the power. But yeah, that's two of you having visions. That is interesting. Thank you. Any other sharings or comments? Um, Obviously, a lot of the people that have signed on for this one weren't able to come to the live. So if there are additional comments or sharings or questions and you're watching this in the replay, please do ping me a message. And who was it? It was Mary, I think, who asked for the other recording. When I'll send this recording. I know some of you missed the beginning parts of it, so I'll send the recording to you if you want to pick up from the beginning, and I will put the link to the last one as well, which was the Breath of Truth Hara defining, which is also about stepping into our divine. Cherry, you were there for that one. That is really accessing our power, our divine presence in our body as well, wasn't it? So clearly this is my theme of the moment. Oh, guys, thank you for coming. Thank you to you guys who are here now, and thank you to all of you who are watching this afterwards. We are back next month. I will change the form on the Reiki Skills Lodge page right now, so that if you want to, as soon as you've watched this, you'll be able to sign up for the next one. The next one is, I couldn't swear to the date, it will probably be the first Monday of July. But yes, go onto the Reiki Skills Lodge page. The next one is going to be on Seihei, which is really interesting because that is heavenly key, the other sort of the flip side of this energy. And yeah, it will bring us into the other aspect of it, and it all links into this old cool Sanskrit stuff. It's very, very cool, guys. So I hope to see you there as well. I feel quite blissed out myself, having just sat there and just done the meditation for myself as well. So I hope you guys have a continued blissful evening. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you guys, and I will hopefully see you next time. Mwah.